because the Baltic countries took me in, and back in 2012, and today also, more or less, that meant they saved my life. So I don't think it would be right for me to say anything except good things, which I have said quite a few actually. Up until recently. So, okay, what has happened now? Well, you probably know, there's all this crap in Lithuanian newspapers about me, and now they're putting it on TV as well. So the subject is all over, and moreover, they've only had one interview with me. And I've published a video on how this interview happened. Basically, they asked me a bunch of questions, none of which were in the actual material. They just talked about how I'm pro-Kremlin, pro-Russian. In these 10 materials that's published in the papers, they didn't actually reference a single fact. I keep asking them, just give a quote where I'm supporting DPR, LPR, separatists, Kremlin. I know I have never said anything like that. So all that started spreading around the media, and the Lithuanian officials have reacted. Specifically, the Deputy Minister of Police has commented that they're actually working on basically depriving me of my refugee status. Which, by the way, he violated a law by doing that. You know why? I'll explain. Any information regarding the refugee status is secret. Any information. By talking about this, he is violating a law. He's committing a crime. And he cannot not know this. Well, if he doesn't know this, then I'm not sure who appointed him Deputy Police Minister. So after such an unprovoked attack, so I'll be forced to defend myself, and of course I will make sure that the Lithuanian mass media have to answer for their words. Thank you. Here's a question that worries me personally. So, as we know, well, lots of Russian mass media can be accused of pushing Russian propaganda, and Ukrainian mass media can be also said to sometimes, some Ukrainian sources can be said to push Ukrainian propaganda, and even some respected Western media sources can be said to sometimes exaggerate things, overplay them, engage in fear-mongering, and I am somewhat scared, personally, of this situation. Not just demonization of opponents, but this decrease of journalistic standards. What do you think is the reason for this? I can't assume that these people have all been bought, or have all been just told to attack somebody, you know. Well, with Ukrainian mass media, I think everything is a lot simpler. This situation when fakes, real fakes, started appearing happened in the winter of 2013, around the time of the revolution and after that. So during those horrible and bloody events at the Maidan, these things started happening. And a lot of them were actually easily checked, real easily checked fakes, like protesters' bodies being burned at the crematoriums. And back then, that was new, that was unheard of. Because it's one thing when such things are spread around social networks, around some forums, and another when it goes on the main TV channels, on, the most visited websites in the country. And back then, it was something new, and now it's become a habit, because nobody bears any responsibility for publishing untruthful information. A few people apologize, really, a few people, I could count them on my fingers, and most just continue publishing fakes. And not just fake news, but actual propaganda and lies that incite hatred between Ukrainians. Because I don't differentiate between Ukrainians who live in the East and in the West. We're all brothers. We're all Ukrainians, and when brothers are killing brothers, that is not normal. When peaceful cities are being bombed, it's not normal. When separatists are shooting from peaceful cities and put their rocket launchers in peaceful cities, that is also not normal. What happened is reality was replaced. They talk about Russian army because it's easier to kill Russians than to kill your own countrymen, your own brothers. But when my people work there, when they see those, former miners, former teachers, we can disagree with them, I disagree with them. I don't support separatism. I think Ukraine should be one country. But let's not pretend that they are not Ukrainians. They are Ukrainians. Ukrainians are killing Ukrainians. And all these fakes, all this propaganda, all this warmongering, they're fanning the flames of conflict. All these stories of, somebody being buried alive, castrated, all these fakes, I've always been against it, and I will continue being against it, and nobody can shut me up. So to put things in our local context, what do you think about, the Western media also doing this sometimes, manipulating facts? Because making fakes is contagious, that's what I'll say. For me, Western journalism was always a standard to strive for. And, it's not something I've heard about. I have personally talked to French journalists, to German journalists, and every time they would take an interview from me, they would turn me inside out. They don't just take you on your word, but they actually ask you, can you verify this? Can you show me the proof? It's like an actual interrogation. And then these mass media suddenly start copying the gibberish produced by Ukrainian mass media. Why did this happen? One key point for me was Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko's announcement of a destroyed Russian armored column in front of, serious European politicians. And then I understood that European mass media just cannot imagine a president of a country just coming out and lying to their face. There never was any armored column. Nobody has ever seen it, no coordinates were ever given. So they have started using fakes from the Ukrainian mass media, and it's easy, here's the source, and if whatever they said is true, is not our problem. And it's dangerous, it blurs the concept of journalism, and it's like cancer, tumor spreads, metastasis, and tomorrow German mass media will be publishing gibberish like our Ukrainian ones. And maybe here in Estonia we actually have a lot of Russian speakers, over 30%, and moreover a lot of them live in this northern part of the country that is close to the border with Russia, and there they are the vast majority. So after the annexation of Crimea and the start of the so-called anti-terrorist operation in Ukraine, our government considered this problem, discussed it, and decided to make a Russian language TV channel to inform the Russian-speaking part of the population. Of course, they are promising that this will not be a propaganda channel, it will not be counter-propaganda. So, what is your opinion on that? Do you like this idea? Do you think it can make good things happen? And if you think it could be positive, then what is the best way to do it? I think this is an okay idea, totally okay. I think it's a better idea than just banning news channels. And the way I see it is, it's like a supermarket. I go to a supermarket, I see a few different kinds of salami, for 50 cents, for 2 euros, and I just choose what I want. So if I switch on the TV and see free news channels, and on one I see like something for idiots, and I don't want to talk about which country's media always put that out, and on another channel I see good propaganda, and on the third channel I see what I really want, then I will make my own choices. This day and age, you cannot make a person watch something, especially when on the internet you can watch anything you want, including, various terrorist channels. So I think the idea itself is okay, but we both know what it's going to boil down to, what's going to happen. If you try to change people's opinions with, propaganda, with dumb propaganda, just basically hammering it into their heads, if they have any sort of, brains, they will just stop watching after a while. I do not like when somebody tries to brainwash me. I think of myself as a intelligent man, and back in 2004, for example, I wasn't for Yushchenko, I was against Yanukovych, because on every TV station, every newspaper, I would see his smiling mug, and this disgusts any normal person. A lot of people tell me this, a lot of my subscribers. By the way, I have subscribers from a lot of countries. US is actually third after Russia and Ukraine, and people are looking for an alternative point of view. They are tired of this official propaganda, and of course Russia pushes it too. But Russia, recently I saw some Russian news. I was staying in a hotel, and Russia 24 was available there, so for 3 days I watched Russia 24. Yes, it's propaganda, but it's done so well, you can't compare it to Ukrainian. If you switch on like TSN, it's propaganda for somebody who didn't go to high school. And the Russia 24 is it's such professionally done propaganda, I see it. Everything is so measured, nothing is accidental. There's none of these fakes, none of this gibberish, none of these repetitive, depressing songs, all these funerals, somebody getting buried every day at the Maidan. What kind of normal person would want to watch that? So I guess we will have to see what will be done with your Russian-speaking channel, but I think if it's done well, smartly, without all this brainwashing, then it will catch on, why not? So how can a normal person who doesn't have a whole lot of time recognize fakes, propaganda? Are there any special signs? So can you help us with that question? Yes, of course. So first off, if the journalists start using biased definitions from both sides, like terrorist troops. What? Was there like a court decision that these people are terrorists? And if they are terrorists, what acts of terror did they commit? A journalist should not use such language. Or journalists talking about, Nazi, Bandera, junta. In that case, we're clearly dealing with propaganda. People are trying to decide for you what to call something, what to think about it. As far as fakes go, recently, fakes have been so dumb, so, idiotic, that, they're obvious, and you can easily see that this is something outrageous, something outreal. And if you see that, then you can take, a few minutes, just go and check the source, see where this originates from. And 90% of the time there will be no source. It will say, according to eyewitnesses, by the testimony of our informant, you can be 98.9% sure this is fake. If they say that foreign newspaper so-and-so said this, then you can go backtrack along various sources to the first source and find out what they actually said. There's always Google Translate, you can always find out what actually happened. And it brings satisfaction, you feel that you are not some idiot who's sitting in front of a TV and mindlessly swallowing everything they feed you. I know what you're saying when you say that a regular person doesn't have the time to filter everything, but unfortunately that's how it is. You can't just believe everything. Back in the Soviet times, people just thought that, it's in the newspaper, it must be true. But unfortunately, those times are past. You can't just believe everything you hear in the media, especially in Ukrainian media. Everything in there needs to be double-checked and triple-checked. And I'm less interested in Russian mass media, and people keep asking me, why aren't you talking about Russian mass media? Why should I talk about Russian mass media? I'm Ukrainian. Ukraine is my home. You first need to clean up your house and then look at the neighbors. I don't care what happens with the neighbors, even if they all die from the filth. So I would ask this question then. So Ukraine is Europe. Do you agree? What does this mean? I don't quite get it. What does Europe mean? If we take each Ukrainian and give him an ID that says, you are a European, will people stop pissing in elevators and bushes? Will people stop throwing cigarette butts everywhere? Maybe they will stop swearing in the streets so loudly? Maybe all the trash will go away, the roads will get fixed? Maybe people will stop stealing? Maybe people will become polite, like in Europe? I don't understand what it means. Ukraine is Europe. We can consider ourselves whatever we could have become a country that Europe would invite. We wouldn't have to run everywhere and beg for various things, but they would just say, guys, you are so awesome, come join us. I'm sure this could have happened, but Europe doesn't start with passports or anything else. It starts right here in the brain. So if people are thinking like they're still in the Soviet Union and at the same time they're throwing down Lenin monuments and building Stalinism, taking the country back to 1937, there are all these murky court cases. People are getting put to prison for writing a few words. You know, this guy wrote Novorossiya, okay, whatever, he's a fool maybe, but you can't put somebody to prison for 5 years for that. That is his opinion. He's not inciting people to kill somebody, to explode something. Okay, he wrote something, he made a leaflet. When a kid distributes leaflets that pensions are no longer enough to pay for the new utility prices, you cannot put him to prison for that. You are acting like Stalinists. You are recreating Stalin's heritage from the 30s. You are recreating the Red Terror. You are one step away from Stalin's tribunals. Actually, the new courts, the ones that put journalist Katsaba to jail and such, they are pretty much like Stalin's tribunals. Same deal. And to say we're Europe, I'll say I have not seen something like that in Europe. When I was arrested by Interpol in the Netherlands on the Ukrainian government's request, Lithuania said, let Netherlands decide. So the Netherlands could have just given me up and be like, good riddance. But no, I've seen an actual court. And the judge in front of me was going on the internet, looking things up, and 5 days later I got a paper signed by the Attorney General. That is real justice. That I get. And what happens in Ukraine, I've been to those courts, I've been through them myself, and what happens now is not any better. In fact, it's actually worse. So to say that Ukraine is Europe, well, we can say it, but it won't change the facts. Thank you. And one more question. As you have probably seen on the news, Putin has recently talked about what actually happened in Crimea. And I know your position that, Crimea is part of Ukraine. It should not be part of Russia. And I suppose you don't support Russia's support of the separatists, that, volunteers come in for a virtually open border. And that their mass media is supporting, and that they are providing equipment and even probably heavy armor. So, in view of that, what is your attitude towards Russia and towards Putin himself? Well, that's a hard question to answer. Well, about the vehicles and all that, I was actually one of the first to show how the vehicles are supplied, through which city. So it's stupid to deny that Russia's owning them. Crimea, I consider it part of Ukraine, although Crimeans write to me and say that, we don't think so. Don't decide for us. Well, I'm not deciding for them. This is just my opinion. I'm not forcing it on anybody. But I think Crimea should be Ukraine, and I think one day Crimea will return to a free, rich, prosperous Ukraine that has a working legal system and is economically independent. But Russia? Well, Russia is a great country. I'm not sure why I should deny this. Russia is a powerful, big, great country. This is the first time I'm saying something like this about Russia. Yes, it's a great country, but for me, Netherlands are also a great country. Another thing is my attitude towards Putin. How can you have a simple attitude towards, say, Stalin, for example? About Stalin, I can repeat the words of Churchill, who said he's a genius politician. But at the same time, we cannot deny that he was an evil genius as well. Putin certainly tries to do something good for his empire, and he certainly has an empire-building mindset. He's thinking like an emperor and trying to strengthen and expand his empire. But to call him a maniac, a psycho, like a lot of mass media are writing, well, that means 86% of Russians support a maniac, and this means that they are probably maniacs themselves, which doesn't really make sense. So, attitude towards Putin cannot be very simple. I am completely okay with Russia. I do not dislike Russians themselves. The volunteers are another matter. Also in the pro-government battalions, Swedes come, Chechens come shoot Ukrainians in the war in the east. And I don't like people coming to the other side either. Yes, I understand that without their backing, the war would be over quicker. But at the same time, I think this is a civil war. This is an internal Ukrainian matter, and we need to resolve it. I understand a lot of people might disapprove of this, but this is what I think. Thank you. And finally, a philosophical question. When will people quiet down and finally make peace? I think it won't happen soon, unfortunately. I think this will last years. This blood feud that has been started and is continually fueled with more bloodshed, I think it is here to stay, unfortunately. And it will take a while for this mutual hatred to die down. When people in Kiev see a car with Russian tags and they paint it with some slogans, what if a man came to Kiev to build a restaurant or something? There are plenty of people who don't care at all about politics. Maybe he came here to build a shish kebab restaurant, and you paint his car or break his windows, so he leaves and you're sitting there without shish kebab. So this will last a while, it's here to stay. This hysteria is not dying down, it's actually being fanned because the government benefits from this. Because if everybody understands that an official in Kiev taking bribes is not Putin's fault, then people will start asking questions. If people understand that the economic collapse is not just because of Donbass leaving, and by the way, Donbass were always called moochers, so people will start asking questions as well, so a scapegoat is needed, something to distract the people. Not only Ukraine does this, there are a few other countries that do the same thing. To distract the populace from internal problems, always pointing to an external enemy. If not for Putin, they would point to Churutin or aliens from outer space, new AIDS, new Ebola, anything. Basically, it's always needed to shift the focus from huge internal problems to external ones. Now the very last question. What can you tell our viewers, our readers? Because the Russians here in Estonia have sort of split into two camps, and one side says, Poroshenko should stop killing women and children in Donbass, and the other side says that, Putin is the villain here. I would say the truth is always somewhere in the middle, and you can't paint one side all white or all black. And for me personally, it was very pleasing to read the comments under all the slanderous pieces that were published about me on Lithuanian websites. I was reading the comments of real Lithuanians writing in Lithuanian language, and I was very pleased to see them say, I hate Putin, but Sharii is saying the truth, so we cannot fault him for that. So, you understand? So we should just look for the truth, avoid the extremes, and don't believe everything you see in the mass media. Not all of it is true. Sometimes, even what they tell you is the opposite of the truth. So you need to search for the truth. Don't just believe in something blindly, but try to understand things by yourself. Avoid becoming a zombie, avoid becoming a part of a crowd, following the herd. It's hard to go against the flow, but that's the only way.